Right, okay, this is my review for a new program. It's only recently come out on macOS 10 called Affinity Photo by the creators of Affinity Designer. Affinity Designer is more for creating composites from scratch with vectors. This is a pixel program mostly for photography. It is basically an affordable equivalent to Photoshop. It will even open Photoshop PSD files and you can edit them and save them. It's very, very similar to Photoshop, but Photoshop you used to either have to pay hundreds for, or now you have to have a monthly or yearly subscription. This one you pay, at the moment it's £30. They say the regular price is £40, but sometimes when companies say that, they don't actually raise it. It's always a lower price. But anyway, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. But anyway, £30 to £40 or 40 to 50 US dollars. And as a one-off fee, and so you always get that version to keep 1.x basically. You'd only have to pay again if you wanted to say 2.0 in the future. At the moment this is 1.3. It sounds like it's been out for a while because of the 1.3 bit, but actually 1.1, 1.2 were betas, 1.3 is the final product. Okay, you get here a welcome screen that lets you select a new document or open some samples. So let's have a look at opening samples. Say you want to open this one. It has a little cloud icon. That means it's not downloaded, it's not actually installed. So we click it once and just wait a few seconds. Now you see a progress bar going around the picture. Wait till that finishes and we can open it. Okay, the image is gone, the icon's gone. Let's double click it. There we go. Now it has layers just like in Photoshop and layer effects. Basically, as far as I can tell, if you can think of something Photoshop's got, this probably has it as well. Okay, this isn't the best one to show. Actually, if I go back to welcome screen, I'm going to open one I opened earlier, this one, because this one is good to work on. Because as you can see, if we have all of this ticked, this is the final picture that they have edited. Now, let's zoom in a little bit on her face. Now, if you look here, it looks pretty much like a final product. But if we untick these and tick the one that says the original layer, you can see that this is the original because you can see some blemishes on her skin. This is actually a good opportunity to, instead of list through all the features, let me just show you the healing brush. Works the same as in Photoshop. Hold down the Alt key, select a good patch of skin, then click, whoops, I haven't selected the layer. Click on the places you want to fix. There you go. Works just like in Photoshop, nice and easy, works very well. Now, we have what's called personas, basically profiles, and normally when you open a file, you'll be on the photo persona, fine, and that's where you get to all your editing. If you open a RAW file, yes, this does support RAW photography, not all cheaper programs do, but this actually supports various RAW files, including Sony, Canon, Nikon. I've tested and I have opened Sony RAW files from my Sony A57 and they open fine. Now some programs don't support my old camera because my old camera was a Fuji bridge camera, and bridge cameras aren't well supported in programs, and also Fuji isn't one of the main ones. So when, not like Canon, Nikon and Sony, so when programs support Fuji, they normally only support the really high up ones like the Fuji X100, things like that. Well, this program actually opens RAW files that I took a few years ago using the Fuji HS20. So it has really excellent RAW file format support. Okay, now this here is a Liquify persona. This is where you do exactly what you would expect if you've used other programs such as Photoshop. Liquify is very much Liquify. It's where you stretch things, pull things, and also it can look like you're melting things. And you can also from here, using the settings, you can mask out areas you don't want to be affected like you can in Photoshop. Let's cancel that and go back to normal. This is Develop. Develop is the area you go into when you open a RAW file format. I haven't opened a RAW file format, I've opened a sample, but let's just imagine this is a RAW. We can adjust our exposure and brightness and black point from here. We can enhance the contrast, the clarity, the saturation, the vibrance. We can adjust the white balance using temperature and tint, or we can go over here and select the actual white balance picker, and we can click on an area of white here and adjust our white balance. As you can see, I've selected some weird areas, so it's going very odd here, but you probably want to click somewhere like that. There you go. You've automatically selected your white balance using the picker. Let's go back to the hand tool. You then have shadows and highlights. We can tick or untick and adjust. We can also adjust profiles, such as, do you want to use Pro Photo RGB? Do you want Lab? Do you want Adobe RGB? Do you want color match? You can select all sorts here, sRGB. Now, a lot of cameras have two choices. They have sRGB or Adobe RGB. I tend to shoot using Adobe RGB because it has a greater amount of colors that are supported. So that was what I'd normally use. Some cameras have things like Pro Photo, mine doesn't. We have histogram here. We have lens, so you can select create your preset if you want. You can do lens correction here, such as distort, horizontal, vertical, rotation, scale. So if you need to apply some lens correction if the balance isn't quite right, if it's tilted, whatever. You can apply chromic aberration reduction, which I don't tend to need to apply really in photos I take on my camera. Even though it's not one of the most expensive, it works very well. Defringe, remove lens vignette, or actually apply your own vignette if there isn't one already. Details, you can add some detail refinement, noise reduction, or even add noise if you want to add noise. Normally you'd be doing this, which is noise reduction. Now, what I would like to see here, actually, here's a feature suggestion. I would like to see an auto button, so that you don't have to mess, if you're not really a pro, you don't want to mess too much with your reduction settings. Maybe a auto where it sort of has a look at the picture and tries to recommend the best setting for you. That might be quite handy, especially for amateurs. Tones, you can adjust your curves here. You can use an S curve, things like that here. I'm going to destroy this picture, but I'm just trying to show you the curves there, like you'd expect to see in Photoshop. By the way, a lot of the editing in this is non-destructive, which is very handy. Split toning, overlays, we can apply overlays here. From up here you have histogram, but you can also look at your scope. You can look at your EXIF information, such as camera model and lens, and focal points here as well. Then cancel this. We then have an export persona, and from here you can actually export ×1, ×2, ×3 for creating a high DPI image or a retina image. So that's a handy, nice little feature. You can select your presets from here, including 8-bit or 24 or 16-bit, your different color profiles. You can export actually even as a vector, SVG for web print or export, EPS and PDF, as well as your standard TIFF, GIF, JPEG and PNG. You can select the format again from here. You can select if you want it to be 8-bit, 16-bit, or if you want it in grayscale. You can select your resampler here. Now, the very top one is the quickest, but not as good quality. The further down the list you go, the slower it may be, the more processor power it may take, but the greater the quality. So if you're exporting your final image, you might actually want to use this one and export at the best possible quality, depending upon your system, of course. Again, here you can select to export your retina images as well. Now, the tools we have at the side here are very standard from things like Photoshop. You have your view tool, which is basically just move around. You then have your move tool to move objects around. You have your crop tool, and from crop you can constrain to an aspect ratio such as 16:9, things like that. You can also use, If you want to straighten your image, this is how you do it. You use the crop tool, then select straighten. It's not its own tool here. That's how you get to it, by the way. You can look at it by a golden spiral, diagonals, none, or thirds. So rule of thirds is probably what you go mostly want on when you're cropping. Let's cancel this a minute. You then have a selection brush, a flood brush, rectangular marquee tool. Even if we hold down the left mouse button, you can also select an elliptical, column, row, or freehand style tool. You then have your bucket tool. You then have your gradient tool to apply a gradient. You then have your paintbrush, paint mixer, eraser, dodge brush, clone brush, undo brush, which is quite handy, blur brush, healing brush. And if we go to healing, I showed you that earlier, but as well as healing, we have patch, blemish, in painting, and I'll actually explain that later, a red eye removal tool there as well. We then have your pen tool, and if we hold down, you also have a node tool. They would then have various shapes such as a star or a square or arrows. We then have a text tool to add text, artistic or framed. Then we have a perspective tool to adjust your perspective, or a mesh warp, so you can change the perspective of something like a castle or whatever in the image. I won't be showing it in this because this is more a review than a whole full-blown tutorial, but still, know it's there. And that if you go to help tutorial, you can watch video tutorials made by the company that made the software, which is very handy, and there's quite a few of them. Up here we then have auto levels, so we can apply auto levels, we can auto contrast, auto colors, and auto white balance. Then down here where we have layers, we have adjustments to apply adjustment layers such as levels, white balance, HSL adjustment, recolor, vibrance, exposure, gradient map, invert, 3D LUT, invert, curves, threshold. There's just all sorts of adjustment layers there. Then you have your actual layers. Then you have your effects. So you can apply Gaussian blur, outer shadow, inner shadow to your objects, outer glow or inner glow to objects, apply outline, 3D, emboss, bevel, color and gradient overlays. Then we have style, few things here. And then we have an interesting feature that I haven't really seen in many programs, which is stock images. So let me actually zoom out of this, and then I'm going to select one of these. These are various stock image providers such as Shutterstock, Deposit Photos, or 500 Pixels. 500 Pixels is also a place where you can upload your image to your profile and let people rate it, comment on them as well, but they also sell stock images. So let's just stick with the top one for now. You can look by commercial and model released, but let's just put in, I don't even know, woman, and then let's see if we can find a female portrait similar to this one. Okay, plenty come up, so then we can then drag one over, and then we have an image we can work with there. And then if we want another one, we just select it and drag it over. So it's very, very handy feature, very useful to have. Again, up here you have, as well as your histogram, you have your color palette there. You can select RGB, hex, HSL, CMYK, lab or grayscale. We have a color picker from here as well, so we can select the color picker. We have swatches from here. We have brushes and various brush stroke sizes, and that's under basic. You also have painting, drawing, texture effects, various things there as well. Now let's have a look at the menu. You have preferences, you have file, which is very standard sort of thing, export, save, open, very sort of standard. Effects, text options there, various text options including paragraph, spacing, size, capitalization. We then have document, and you can add a snapshot here, so you can do a certain amount of editing, then create a snapshot. This is basically a backup. Then you can do lots and lots more editing. Then if you realize all that editing you've done isn't what you want and you want to go back, you can step back. Basically like having a time machine backup in a way. You then have various color formats and convert your profile, your color profiles. You can resize the document or the canvas from here and flip it. Various options there. Layer, there's things you'd expect here, such as new layer, new fill layer, new adjustment layer. Various options here. Very basic type of select menu. You can select or deselect. Usual things there. Arrange, bring the front, send the back, that type of thing. Filters is where you can get to various filters such as your Gaussian blur, your box blur, your motion blur, your distorting such as perspective and ripple, sharpen and unsharpen mask, noise, add noise, deinterlace, detect edges, color, which is where you can get to your auto color, balance and contrast, things like that, which is found over here, these symbols here on the toolbar. Frequency separation from here, apply image, lighting, which is very good. Plugins, I don't think there are any at this time, but there probably will be soon. We select lighting, you can actually drag your lighting all around, enlarge and shrink, move the various points and nodes about to get the desired effect. Then you can select all of the options here on your palette. You can even change things like the shininess. You got specular, you got ambient, you got number of light. Then you can add, remove, copy. You can make it a spotlight, a point light, or directional light. Change the color so we can give it a red sort of color. And if you're wondering why it's not really taking effect back here, that's because I have the layer selected of one of the stock images, so you can see it taking effect only on that layer. So as you can see, it's made that little stock image red because it has a red lighting color. I should have really selected a different layer before demonstrating this, but never mind. Direction, distance, outer cone, inner cone, texture, load bump maps. You can even load and clear a bump map, which is very interesting. View, you got zoom in, zoom out, percentages, actual size, pixel size, lots of options there. Window and help are very standard. Now what I would like to show you very quickly is the inner in painting. Whoops, let's just close this rubbish here. And okay, now this isn't going to be a good demonstration because you're probably best off doing something like this using a raw file, but I can't find my original raw file of this. So I've selected the in painting tool. You can select the amount, the hardness, the size of the brush, all sorts here. But basically what you want to do is hold down and paint over an object that you want to remove from your image. And this is I'm trying to think of the name of it. Oh yeah, I think it's called Content Aware in Photoshop. Okay, let go of your mouse button, and he's gone. This image, because it's quite busy, it's not 100% perfect, but look how good that did. It looks very good there. It's just some of the road hasn't ended up quite like I would like, but if you keep going over it, you might be able to actually fix it. And even if you can't, even if it's too busy, you can always manually fix it yourself, and it at least gives you a good starting point. And if you look at some examples of people using this program on YouTube, they have had simpler images which are still maybe even quite complex, that they have taken like an elephant out of a picture, and even though it's got quite a busy background with trees and leaves and things like that and grass behind it, it's actually fixed it first go really well. So I haven't used Photoshop's Content Aware tools for a while, but when I used them previously, I don't remember them working quite as well as this in painting in Affinity. So that is one of very powerful points to this program, especially for £30 to £40. Is it a complete Photoshop killer? Well, if you're some real pro Photoshop user, been using it for 20 years, creating huge, complex, composite images, maybe not. Maybe it's lacking some features. But for most people, including professionals, I think this is going to have everything you could possibly want, especially if you are doing photographic work, which is what this is aimed at. You can actually do composite work in this, and it may be absolutely perfect for pretty much everybody. I can't really sort of speak about that for myself because I haven't done it. I don't really do much composite work, just mostly editing and enhancing photographs that I've taken myself. So I think even for professionals, certainly photographers, this is going to be more than enough. There will be, from my understanding, from what I've been told, there will be, even though there isn't at this time, there will be a free trial available to download. So make sure that you keep checking their website to look out for that. If it isn't out yet, it will be in the future if you don't really want to put out money until you've actually physically used the program, especially if you want to make sure it will open your type of camera's RAW file. But hopefully it'll be out within the foreseeable future, because I do normally recommend when I do these software tutorials that you always check out a trial first and make sure it's right for you. But I personally think it is, for me at least, a complete Photoshop killer. I wouldn't think about using a program such as Photoshop or Corel Aftershot Pro now that I've used this. It's an absolutely great program. It does everything you could possibly want for your photography work, and for a change at an affordable price. And it is made for Mac, so it supports things like Grand Central Dispatch, which is basically some technology that helps run programs and rendering, especially rendering, saying like video and photos, much quicker. Just to take a quick look at the website here, if you go to affinity.sherif.com/photo, should get you there, and you can check out all the features. Here's a list of the tools, which I've briefly mentioned quite a few of those. Like it has shape tools, gradient tools, and if you go down, you can see it has adjustment layers. Live blending modes is something I should have mentioned. It does, when you apply things like blends and filters, you do get a live preview. Dedicated raw editing, which is absolutely great. Professional adjustments, advanced lens correction, extensive retouching tools. Here's the liquify tool in action here. As you can see, this would be the original, and this is it with the liquid tool applied, making it look like the clock has melted. Customizable UI, live filters, work on documents with control, live previews, non-destructive applications. The previews, the filters are non-destructive, and you get a live preview. So as you adjust the, say, radius, the image will update in the background, but if you were to reset it or cancel it, it wouldn't overwrite the image. It's only a preview, so you can really see what you're doing and before you actually apply the whole thing. Unlimited layers, which is handy. Flexible export, including export 1 to 3 times for high DPI work. Professional brush engine. Wraps and perspective corrections. There's a sort of a demo there of what that does. Various comprehensive shortcuts. And as you can see, because it has been built exclusively for Mac, it takes advantage of some of the OS X's APIs and features that a lot of programs on multiple platforms such as Windows and Mac don't bother with, such as Core Graphics, Grand Central Dispatch, which I really believe is something more programs should take advantage of because it helps with rendering and helps speed up the program. 64-bit, it supports Retina UI, so it looks good on Retina displays. Supports iCloud, Drive, native Mac full screen, Mac media browser, and if you have one of these newer laptops that came out this year that has Force Touch, it supports that, and that is basically a pressure-sensitive trackpad that tells the difference between a hard push, a medium push, or a strong push on the trackpad, which could be handy in a program like this. Full feature list, if you click here, I won't go through it now, but that is a whole really detailed list of all the features in the program, so I recommend you take a look at that. Now I will put a link in the description both to the website so you can check out the features and look at the information for yourself, and I will put a link directly to the program to buy on the Mac App Store. As I said before, it is £30 to £40 UK or 40 to 50 US dollars, which is quite different than having to pay about that monthly. So that is really good. What do I think of it? Yes, I absolutely love it. I think it is the best photo editor on Mac at this time. It really is great, especially at the price. So I recommend you go check out at least the website for yourself and have a look. It's really, really good. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. If you could do me a huge favour, not just like the video, if you could actually subscribe to my channel. It only takes a few seconds and will help me out a lot. Thanks.